All right, all right.
Welcome back to Make Jesus Culture. I'm your host, Lancelot Chaubert. I've got a full belly. I hope you do too. We're getting ready to bring on our friend Josh Blake of Folk and Field, and he's going to be talking about God's family and kingdom in song, and he's going to be playing some songs for you. We've already been listening to some of it as he's been fiddling, noodling around in the background, so it's been really nice, kind of lunch break ambiance. So we're going to kick it over to you, Josh. You there?
Yep, I'm there. Thanks for the introduction. All right. Well, thanks to everyone for tuning in. As he said, my name is Josh. I'm a singer, songwriter, and church music leader. And today I'm going to talk about God's kingdom and family through song, as the title says. So today, first, I'm going to talk about the album that I'm working on and how this relates to the idea of God's kingdom and family. Then I'm going to talk about a project that you can contribute to if you're inspired. So first of all, the name of the project that we're working on is, that I'm working on, sorry, the name of the album is Of Folk and Field. That's Of Folk and Field. So the idea for that came from a really good time that I had playing music with my two friends, Anna and Rachel. We made a band for a little bit and got together, and we're extremely, we, we really pushed each other to be creative, and the end result was better than anything we could have come up with on our own. And I mean, so that kind of instilled in me the idea that music, working with others and for others is better. Um, but the name Of Folk and Field kind of came from our desire to write songs about the people and places of Mississippi, which I'm from. Well, I'm from Texas, but right now I'm in Mississippi and I've been there for quite a few years now. But yeah, we just wanted to write songs about our local context. And so the people kind of relates to the folk and the places relates to the field. So Of Folk and Field is a really nice name for that. Um, and if you're interested in checking out any of our like live recordings, we have a SoundCloud page, but there's very few on there. But that's kind of the backstory. So the name of the album comes from just a good time with friends. And I think that really fits with the theme of the album because now that my album expands not just for people in Mississippi, but just in general, community and kingdom. Um, some of the ideas for the album came from studying the scriptures, from learning about Israel, how God had them be a people that were his, and he wanted to make a place for them to live. That's kind of the folk and field idea. And some of the ideas also came from learning about what the New Testament has to say about church and how we are to gather together in fellowship with one another. So that's kind of some of the background of the album that I'm working on. Now, one of the main things about this album is that it has a story that runs through it, and that has just listening to different types of music, different CDs that have a continuous story from the first song to the last one has really captured me. I think, especially in our culture today, story has become very important. For instance, like story helps us to see the world, our world, in a new way. Take the Chronicles of Narnia with C.S. Lewis. Those stories help us to understand ourselves, to understand God, and our world a little bit better, and they do it in a very magical way. But for me, certain CDs have been very influential, such as Dear Wormwood by the Oh Hellos. That's based off a C.S. Lewis book, and some other ideas. But the Oh Hellos CDs tend to have this like theme running through it, and all their songs kind of have similar musical motifs and they relate, and it's very well thought out at the beginning. And it just makes it a joy to sit down and listen to the whole thing, because then each song by itself might sound good or might be interesting, but when it's put in the context of the whole album, then you really start to understand it and you get just a better picture. Um, so I say all that to say that that I've written the songs and organized these songs on this album to have a consistent story arc. And that story arc is this: coming from the world's sinful community and kingdom to God's heavenly kingdom and community. So it's kind of got this arc of darkness to light, which is the story of all Christianity, and it's the kind of the focus of the Bible: fall, redemption. So with that story comes several themes, and the first theme of this album is the idea of fighting sin and struggling with it internally. And if we don't fight it, it begins to take over and essentially kills us, either maybe spiritually or even physically. And also our sin begins to hurt others as well. So the beginning of this album kind of starts in that place, almost from a place of hopelessness. But from there, it takes a turn and talks about Jesus and God's rescuing and covenantal love for us, and how that rescues us when we had no power to rescue ourselves. And so from there, it goes to the theme of treasuring Christ above all else, and him being a better pleasure than any of that other sin that that so enticed us before. And then from there, it goes to the idea that our Christian life is not just a relationship between us and God, but it involves the people of God. And we need the fellowship of God's people to really begin to live rightly and to understand who God is. And then the album ends with a couple of pictures of what that community might look like. And it kind of ends with the idea of living in God's kingdom, and that the life there is good and it should draw others in. And also just the idea that we need to display the goodness of God's kingdom to the world. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start playing some of the songs from the album. You'll hear probably parts from all the songs in the album, but we obviously don't have time to do the whole thing right now. But I'll just kind of step through song by song and give you a little idea of what I was thinking when I wrote it and when I put it together. I think that'll help you to really appreciate the just kind of the story arc of the album. So I'm going to take a drink real quick and then play the first song. Okay, so the first song is called Bullet Hand, Bad Heart, and it's kind of this outlaw Western ballad, I guess you could call it, where a man has this thing called a bullet hand, and it's just kind of a metaphor, you could say, for the sin that lives in us, and essentially how the evil inside of us causes us to do bad things. It's not necessarily our circumstances, our surroundings or anything, but it's because we have evil hearts. So that's kind of the setup for this song. And I want to play the whole thing because it tells a story, and it's really hard to just take part out of the story. You don't really get to experience the whole thing. So this is Bullet Hand, Bad Heart. I was a poor man, born with a bullet hand. I was a bad, bad man. I robbed the stagecoach blind, every nickel and dime. I didn't do no time. I didn't do no time. And you say it ain't right, stealing like I do. And I say it ain't right, but when you you were a poor man too. A poor man too. Now I'm a rich man, still got a bullet hand, and I done just killed a man. Now here comes the lawman, warrant in his hand, says I'm a wanted man, a wanted man, and he says it ain't right killing like you do, and I say it ain't right, but with you, you were a bad man too, a bad man too. Bullet hand, bad heart, bullet hand, bad heart. He pulled his gun on me, I fired back with 3, then turned my horse to flee. No hope, no hope, no hope of arrest. He aimed his rifle at my chest. He put my heart to rest. Bullet hand, bad heart, bullet hand, bad heart, bullet hand, bad heart. Now I'm a dead man, 'cause of my bullet hand. I am every man. Whew. That was Bullet Hand, Bad Heart. Give me a second. All right, so the setup for that was again just indwelling sin and that fighting it and that causing us to do evil, bad things. So the next song is called Addicted, and it also talks about those things, but it kind of hits on the idea that our sin ultimately is destructive to ourselves, and sin keeps on taking more and more from us, but really it pays back less and less each time. So it just kind of draws us down into the pit. But also, even as Christians, as we fight sin, part of the battle is sometimes we know that what we're doing is wrong, but we can't help but love it anyways. And so that's sort of part of where this song is at. The chorus essentially is, I love what's killing me, but I don't want to die. So it's kind of just this wrestling with, I know that what I'm doing is wrong, but it also feels good. And so it's kind of a hard place to be. So I'm just going to sing verse 3 from this and the chorus. The So this verse talks about being addicted to wine, and it uses it as a metaphor to explain what I was talking about of just it kind of takes more and more and gives back less and less each time. So. Oh, I'm addicted to destruction like the strongest wine is calling me from the bottle. It calls me from the vine. What started out as heaven in each and every cup turned into muddy water the more that I drank of. And oh, I love what's killing me, but I sure don't wanna die. Oh, I love what's killing me, but I sure don't wanna die. So that was Addicted, or at least part of it. So now, again, the album continues on this idea of sin and it destroying us, but now it kind of moves to the idea of destroying others as well. This next song is called Bad Issues. I'll just sing probably the chorus from it, but it kind of hits at this place where there's a hopelessness to being trapped in sin, to feeling guilty for the things we've done, to feeling essentially like no one can love us. And at some point, like we need to come to that place, because truly before God, like there's no reason for him to love us. Like even our best deeds are counted as filth. So, in a sense, even for the Christian, the idea of being unlovable makes sense to some degree. But if we were to take this song just by itself, it ends on a very hopeless note. I mean, the end of this is kind of a vamp that's like, it's kind of a warning for people to get out of the way, because like, who could love me? Look out, I'm destructive. That's kind of the idea here. And yeah, it also is kind of about different personality traits, but the big point again is just like our sin hurting ourselves and hurting others. So I'll play the chorus from that. I've got bad, 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 bad issues, and they're burning a hole inside my pocket. Bad, 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 bad issues, and they'll burn a hole inside of you. Look, get out of the way. You can love me anyway. Look, get out of the way. You can love me anyway. So at the end there is that little vamp of, basically like, look out, here I am, I'm unlovable. And again, as I mentioned, like if you just took this song by itself out of the context of the whole thing, it'd be a very dark place to end up. But actually this song ends up tying into another song that I'll sing later. So I'll just go on and move on to the next one. Okay, so this next song is called Brother's Blood. Now there's a lot going on in this song. I don't necessarily want to talk about it all, but it continues to hit on that idea of our sin being destructive to others, so much so that it begins off talking about Adam, and essentially how, the scripture says through Adam, sin entered the world. And so if you think about it, it's kind of like the blood of the world is on Adam's hands. Like he's guilty of the fate of everyone. And so this even talks about Cain and his selfish sin, and basically affecting his brother and the fact that he kills him. Um, that may be an understatement. Just like his sin destroyed somebody else. But this song is where the album begins to take the turn up to the light because it focuses on Jesus and it focuses on what Jesus does for us. So it first talks about um, Jesus being put to death at the hands of his brothers. I mean, the Jews, he came for them and they killed him. He was one of them and they killed him. But in spite of that, God's love towards his people and his promise that he would send Jesus to solve the sin issue, that speaks a louder voice than the blood that is on their hands from killing Jesus, if that makes sense. Jesus' blood speaks a better word for us. And so in kind of a turn, it's his blood that covers us, that allows us to be in a right standing before God. And so the song ends with the idea of Jesus gathering his brothers and taking them to the Father, saying that he's not ashamed to bring them to the Father because his blood is covering them and because they can come before the Father because of that. So I'll sing this one. I'll sing the whole thing because, again, this is a story. I think it's crucial to hear the whole thing. So this one, again, is called Brother's Blood. I was sleeping in the garden when I heard her call my name. In her eyes a stranger's fire burned a wicked flame. So I took her hand and we took a bite and we sealed our brother's faith that night. Blood, blood, my brother's blood, it covers my hands. Me, I had an evil father. My blood was poisoned from the start, and I was jealous of my brothers. Pride and hatred filled my heart, so I took his hand and I took my knife. Now his blood condemns my guilty life. Blood, blood, my brother's blood, it covers my hands. I was murdered by my brothers. They hated me. See, their blood had made them killers. Their whole family. So they took my hands and they took my blood and they nailed me to a cross of wood. Blood, blood, my brothers, blood. hands. But rather than cursing them for their murderous choice, the innocence of my blood speaks a louder, warning voice. I gave my life willingly, I gave my love with joy. Blood, my brothers, blood, it covers you, it covers you, and blood, my sprinkled blood, it cries for you, it cries for you. So come, brothers, come, I will show you to my Father. So come, brothers, come, I will call you mine. So come, brothers, come, we must go to our Father. So come, brothers, come, I am not ashamed to call you mine, 'cause brothers, you are mine. That was Brother's Blood. All right, so at this point in the album, the story has turned up, and we have Jesus' blood covering us, and that's so beautiful. And part of God sending his son to die is that God declared in the Old Testament that he loved us, and he made a covenant, and he promised his love, and it's a never-ending, never diminishing love. And so that's where the album goes next. It's this is a song called I Will Always. And as I mentioned before, when I was talking about Bad Issues, this song kind of ties into that one. It picks up from that idea of who could love me anyways. And it's essentially God's answer saying, I love you and I will always love you. And it's not because you look pretty. It's not because you've done good things. It's just because I've chosen to love you. There's even a metaphor in here about being in prison. And that, again, ties back to the song Bad Issues. So I'm going to play the whole thing of this. Again, I think this is it tells a story, and it needs to be, need to do the whole thing. So let me take another drink, and then we'll do that one. This is I Will Always. I see you there in your prison stripes and your cell. Actually, let me start. Let me start that again. Started singing the wrong verse, which again doesn't really make sense. So let's. I hear you say, how could you love a man like this, of broken glass and jagged edges that tear the flesh of your hand? but I will always love you. Yes, I will always hold you in my hand. I see you there in your prison stripes and your cell, your rusted chains that you know all so well. They keep you bound and weak. But I will always love you, and I will always free you from your chains. And I know you feel trapped and all alone. Let go. Let my love bring you home. So hold on tight as I pick you up from out of death and change you with all the love that I have left. And truthfully, you'll never run out. I'll 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 never run out. 'Cause I will always love you. Yes, I will always love you till the end. That was I Will Always. All right, so again, continuing on with the story, the at this point, like God's love has rescued us and pulled us from darkness, and that allows us to see Him and know Him and have a relationship with Him. And from that, we start to experience Christ, and we start to see Him as a new and a better pleasure than all the other things that the world has to offer. The sins that had entrapped us before begin to grow dull in the brightness of Christ's glory. So this next song is called New Pleasure, and it takes that idea. I think it was perhaps Thomas Chalmers who wrote an essay on the expulsive power of a new affection, and this kind of captures that and captures some of the Psalms where the psalmist cries out for the Lord and talks about there being, in Psalm 16, it says there's pleasures at your right hand forevermore. This song kind of gets to that, and it's a more upbeat song than some of the others that have been on the album so far. And it really takes it to a brighter place. So I'm just going to sing the chorus of this one, but I think you'll get a good feel for it. It's like the canyon deep, like when your breath just leaves. It's like the ocean floor with teeming colors beneath. It overwhelms the faculty. It's your love in me, a new pleasure, a new treasure. It's better hold than all the world can bring. I've tasted and seen, its fullness is sweet. It's your life in me. Yeah, so that one's more of an upbeat, poppier song, I guess you could call it. That is A New Pleasure. All right, so moving on. The next, so okay, at this point we have a relationship with God. At least in this point of the story, there's a relationship with God, and we know Him, and He's becoming more to us than anything else we could have known before. But there's a song that we put here intentionally called "Center of the World," and this almost would seem like it would take a dip back down to sorrow or despair. But it really is trying to get across the point that the Christian life is not just between me and God. It's between me and God and the people of God. Like, that's how we experience who God is. We need God's people to really experience Him. And a lot of Christianity, especially today, can just be focused on the me relationship with Jesus. And when we focus on ourselves, we kind of find that there's nothing really there. Like, we can look at ourselves, and it would be like if we took a journey to the center of the world, like we wouldn't find anything interesting there. All we would find is darkness and, ultimately death. And so kind of the idea here is that if we just kind of navel gaze and think about ourselves and don't think about the church, then we're missing a lot. In fact, so there's a line in this song that says, "Love was meant to be shared." And so that kind of, again, gets across this point that if we just accept love, that's not the fullness of what God has intended for us. We're supposed to share that love with others. This is a bit of a kind of a bluesy song, almost like you might have like a street corner preacher or a blues man on the street kind of sing this song. I'll just sing the chorus again. I think that will be good. So this song is "Center of the World." Actually, I'll do a verse too. That'll help. So. Well, I've been to the center of the world. It's a pretty dark and dreary place to be. Aside from all the mantle and all the pressure I couldn't handle, the only one I saw there was me. It was a lonely place to be. Just the rocks and me. I've been digging for diamonds all of my life. I only found stone at the center of the world. I was all alone. All right. So the next song is Cabin Song. Guess it's kind of a weird name, but it's about a cabin. So what else are you going to call it? I mean, so really the idea from this came from two separate times where I spent with some friends at a cabin, hence the name. Two different groups of friends, but it was just a really good place. It was on the side of a mountain, so there it was beautiful. We had good friends there, good fellowship, good food, good drinks, and it wasn't like the kind of thing that got out of hand. It was just good and beautiful because it was the people of God enjoying Christian community and enjoying the good things that God has given in a good way. Uh, so this cabin song tries to capture that idea. It also kind of incorporates communion to some extent, and kind of it's just kind of a picture of what Christian community could be like, or maybe should be like, something to kind of look towards, look for us to inspire us to live. So it's kind of one of those things where this cabin experience should be attractive, and it should bring the rest of the world in. And so like at the end of the song, we get the whole forest being drawn in and caught up in this celebration. Um, I think it's really good. It's a really good picture. But uh, I think I'm just going to play the chorus. I think that's all we'll have time for now. So come, sit by the fire and warm my heart with a song. Let the wine of fellowship flow and carry us away. Oh, 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 oh. All right. That was Cabin Song. And so now we get to the end of the album. And this last song is called Land of the King. And it's again a picture of God's people living together in fellowship. Um, it's it's meant to sort of be an encouragement of something to look towards when heaven comes to earth, and Christ becomes, he reigns on earth as our king, and we live with him. He, like as Revelation talks about, he will dwell with us and we will be his people and he will be our God. Um, it's kind of the idea of us living in the land of the king. And it talks about like just all different areas of who is involved with that, the church, our brothers, our sisters, all nations, kind of joining in together as one. And so my concept for this song was that it would kind of be like a bar tune or a pub tune. um, I've never been to England, but I've seen enough movies, and this, I guess, is not a good qualifier, but I've seen enough movies to see people singing in pubs and enjoying themselves. And I think that in the church, when we confine music to just Sundays, we're kind of missing something. And so this kind of gets at the idea of like us needing a song to just sing together when we gather. And the song points us to the coming kingdom, the coming king, um, and some of the realities of our world. And again, yeah, it's meant to kind of give us a picture of what things could be and to point us to that final end. Um, so this is called Land of the King. I'm going to play the whole thing. Yeah, and then we'll start to wrap it up. So. Come, my brothers, we will dine. We will drink of the sweetest wine. We will laugh and dance and sing, for this is life in the land of the King. This is life in the land of the King. Come, my sisters, with joy inside. Spend every treasure, the finest kind. Gaze on his face, be satisfied. For this is life in the land of the King. This is life in the land of the King. Where all is well, we'll drink to our guide. Rest in his grace, bathe in his love. Ascend in his hands to the beyond. His presence with us is our bond in the land of the King. Come, O church, the blushing bride, meet your groom on stallion white. Together with all saints unified, living life in the land of the King. Living life in the land of the King. Where all is well, we'll drink to our guide. Rest in his grace, bathe in his love. Ascend in his hands to the beyond. His presence with us is our bond. Where all is well, we'll drink to our guide. Rest in his grace, bathe in his love. Ascend in his hands to the beyond. His presence with us is our bond. Come, O nations, rise and sing. Join holy hands in the kiss of peace. Salvation has reached each race and creed. His beautiful body in the land of the King. His beautiful body in the land of the King. Where all is well, we'll drink to our guide. Rest in his grace, bathe in his love. Ascend in his hands to the beyond. His presence with us is our bond. His presence with us is our bond. His presence with us is our bond in the land of the King. All right, and that was Land of the King. So that's kind of the whole scope of the album so far, and as it is. And briefly, before I hand it back to the moderators, I want to talk about a collaborative project that you can join in on. So this this album that I've been working on, as I was talking with Dave Yauk from Garden City, we kind of had an idea that God's kingdom and God's people are two big ideas that the church needs to come together on and to collaborate on and to flesh out some ideas for. And so that includes like art, painting, music, whatever creative thing that can be done. Like we want to ask you to start putting those things together. And so the idea of this is like to do this for your local church. So like in your church, you're kind of working with your pastor and music leaders and artists and asking the question, what does it mean to be a part of God's kingdom and God's people? And then if you submit that, then we can make a compilation of all these localized groups and kind of start to have a global picture of what some of these things could look like. So if you're at all interested in that, then submit to the Worship Ministry Catalyst website. Again, that's the Worship Ministry Catalyst website. We really want a lot of ideas on this. We think it's an important subject for us to focus on. And also Garden City, I'm sure as most of you know, can provide those like production services and produce the music at a lower quality cost. That's why I'm working with them. They've made it very affordable, and they've done a really good job. And so yeah, so I mean, the album that I've been working on is just an example. Hopefully that kind of gets jump starts maybe some creativity in you, some storytelling in you, to help others to see the world in a new way. So with that, I'd like to really thank everyone who has logged in and watched. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you're looking towards the album when it comes out. And with that, I'll turn it to the moderator if there are any questions.
I
Thanks.
just giving us your time and your voice and your words. You know, I don't think it was mentioned at the start, but you're also a PhD candidate in astrophysics, right?
Yeah, aerospace engineering. Yeah,
Aerospace.
pretty
You're
close.
an aerospace engineer. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And what's kind of your specialty? Like, what's your thesis in?
Yeah, so that's usually a dangerous question to ask graduate students, but fortunately, I have a good answer. I'm studying aeroacoustics, so that's
Oh
how like
wow.
fluid flow interacts with sound. I'm looking at the noise that jets make, trying to simulate that with computers and understand that, predict that better. So it's kind of the overall focus. Yeah.
So you're basically dealing with the music of the spheres in
Yeah.
aerospace, and then actually implementing it. That's great.
Yeah.
So music's your day job, and aerospace is just your gig on the side, right?
Yeah, that's what I tell people. So no, I'm
That's
sure my
great.
parents wish it was the other way. No.
That's great. That's all right, man. It's what vocation and calling's for. So that's beautiful. I didn't see any questions in the chat right here. Do you have
All right.
any, you know, any like burning ways of summarizing up this idea of thematic albums that you can just elucidate on just a little bit more here at the end? We got a couple minutes. I was just curious if you had any more thoughts on that.
Yeah, I can make some up. No, like I think the best way to like if you wanted to approach something like this to start doing it, the best way to be would be to immerse yourself in those kind of CDs that tell stories. Like for instance, there's a Willie Nelson CD. I think it's Redheaded Stranger,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of like an outlaw folk or country story. And all the songs kind of share similar musical themes. They share similar like just work like lyrical themes and all that. I would say another one could be I think there's an older Gungor CD, Ghost Upon the Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of just goes through creation and the whole creation, redemption, the fall, redemption, the whole like biblical narrative. I would say if someone's interested in doing that, then they should sit down and just like for a whole period, listen to the CD maybe a couple times and kind of drink in those ideas. But if you're like a songwriter or an artist and you're thinking like, I have these ideas for songs, but they're all kind of like randomized and kind of separate. Um, I don't know. There, I would just say try to think of larger ways where they could connect. I mean, some of these songs did not connect at first, but as I was thinking about it, and part of this again is I don't think I mentioned this before, but studying scripture and learning, in community, in the church, learning what the scripture says, learning what themes it talks about. and then kind of taking those that you've just discussed and solidifying them into a song. Um, I don't know if that helps at all. Like, did you have a more maybe? Did you have something more specific that
No,
you were
I think
interested
that's
in, or?
great, man. It reminds me, some of the stuff you were saying was reminding me of the old, like, narrative symphonies, that were tethered to ballets or tethered to operas, that had a very clear,
Mhm.
almost narrative structure to the way they were organized. And then also, the like poetic ballads, like the Ballad of the White Horse by G.K. Chesterton, which is essentially the outline of the Lord of the Rings. Not a lot of people realize that,
Mm.
but or Paradise Lost, a lot of the old poems like the Iliad and the Odyssey, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Hesiod, or the Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Lady of Shalott by
Mhm.
Tennyson, things like that, are lyrically, I'm more on the lyric side of things, but they kind
Mhm.
of have that stanza and that also pop song breakdown. That's essentially what a drinking song is a ballad. Um, so yeah, I'd probably steer people in that direction too after hearing some of what you were talking about. But I think that's great, man, and good on you for trying that. Joey and I were just talking the other night about how the 3-minute pop song thing was so tethered to the size of the vinyl. It's like they ran out of room, and we got so locked into that and to the kind of commercial jingle culture that we actually have forgotten that entire concept albums and entire narratives can be written.
Mhm.
So good on you for doing that, for being called to the higher and more noble end of music. And I wish you
Yes.
Godspeed in it. And as Harrison Hollingsworth said on our first day, every good endeavor. So, Godspeed in that, man,
Thanks.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, and as you were talking, I was thinking, really, like, yeah, what you were kind of saying was there are all these old examples of stories, and I would say if a concept album or something like that is what someone is interested in creating, like, you have to begin by immersing yourself in story. So
Yeah,
I think that's kind of what I've been doing subconsciously or consciously, I don't know, for the past few
sure.
years. I think it's kind of worked its way out in the desire to order even art in some kind of narrative form. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, you got to know the tradition, so you have something to pull from and a conversation to enter into rather than trying to think that you're a self-made man and, and building it all up from scratch. So that's great, man. I think that's excellent. Hey,
Yeah.
we're out of time, but you guys should definitely check out a Folk and Field. Tune into the album that's on the Make Jesus Culture Week 2 schedule on the site makejesusculture.com. We're going to take about an hour and a half break, and then my good friend Reverend Kyle Welch of Shepherd of the Hills, that is Beverly Hills, Hollywood, will be coming on and talking about screenplays and sermons and the difference between an oral manuscript and a literary manuscript and a screenplay manuscript, and how that plays into his community there at Shepherd of the Hills. So we're going to take a break. We're kind of winding down on the conference here, so we got some more gaps in the days to kind of ease into the end as we move towards worship on the 18th, day 14. So we will see you in an hour and a half. Make Jesus Culture.